Okay. Hello, everybody. Old Buck Dave back again with episode 206 of Two Old Bucks. And with me is the other old buck, and that would be
Old Buck Dell.
Old Buck Dale. How you doing, buddy?
I'm a tired old buck, but
Tired old buck.
otherwise, I'm doing okay. I'm doing okay.
How do I look? Do I look marvelous today? This is my Halloween thing.
I would not
As
recognize you
scary as I get.
without it. I don't usually dress up. I'm not doing too much of that stuff anymore. I'm eating a lot more candy. I can admit that, but I'm not doing any kind of decorative stuff.
Yeah, we had
I dress pretty cool every day, anyhow.
you are. You're kind of my wife bought a bunch of candy for Halloweeners last night.
Uh-huh.
And we had exactly zero. The woman across the street from us ran out of candy, and we figured it out. Halloweening was between 6 and 7. That's when my front sprinklers are working.
Oh,
Blow water across the driveway. It's stinky sulfur
very,
water.
very clever move on your part.
Yeah. So she was crushed, and we didn't get any trick or treaters.
I did inherit. Uh, Actually, I did some help the neighbor out, and they said, "Oh, how can we repay you?" And I said, "How about a bag of bite-sized Snickers?" So she came with 2 bags of them, and then this morning after Halloween, she came in with a big bag
Oh boy!
of all the full-size stuff. So I got enough candy to keep me going for weeks.
So you're ready with candy and cigars. So life is good.
Cigars, yeah. I'm moderating those because they're not easy to come by unless I get another part-time job. So,
well, speaking
yeah,
of part-time jobs,
yeah.
tell me. I know you've been working crazy since the hurricane.
Oh, we had a lot of damage to exterior lighting, and then when the globes and stuff blow off the fixtures, they're usually plastic, so they break those things off. So we had about a dozen of those that had to be repaired. And then once you get to messing with it and straightening things up, you find a whole bunch of other problems, stuff that landscapers have hit with lawnmowers. And so I've been fixing stuff nonstop for the last 3 weeks, but still haven't got all our debris picked up. But I understand we're in the queue to have that. I mean,
boy,
big
that's
truckloads. I'm telling you,
trucks.
truckloads.
Oh my gosh,
Yeah,
train loads would be more like it. It's unbelievable. So
but
much stuff everywhere yet.
yeah, all in all, the exercise is keeping me pretty fit. I get a little bit, I'm definitely tired every day and that kind of thing. So, hey, but there's something I wanted to tell you when we got to, and our listeners too, is
Yeah, let's do it. We
I have
still
no
have a couple.
idea. Yeah. I mean, I have no idea who watched the World Series, but the reason I'm mentioning that is I actually forgot about it. I forgot it. I forgot all about it. I
Forgot
was
it
so
was going
tired with
on.
something else. No, I
Wow.
did my usual thing, and then the wife and I usually go for a little walk in the evening to get some 10,000 steps in, that kind of thing. And
Mm-hmm.
I forgot all about it. So the game is over. I know who won, but the
So,
way they won, the I read a little bit about it and listened to a couple of announcers. The way that they won.
big comeback in the last game. They were down 5 or 6-0, something like
Did
that.
you see it?
I did not. All I've seen is the clips. I was like you. I like,
Well,
oh
listen
yeah,
to
World
this.
Series.
Well, listen to this. Old Buckdale decides they replayed it, only they shortened it. They did it like in 2 hours. So, they cut down a lot of the peripheral stuff. So they replayed it, and I know what's happening, but I knew the big rebound came in the fifth inning
Mm-hmm.
on on three basic errors that
Yeah, just a
yes.
simple muff at center. Was it center field or
Yeah,
anyway?
Judge should have had that one, but
Yeah,
he was looking at the runner or
he was
something.
looking. Yeah, he was looking somewhere.
He
He
had
wasn't.
the ball was in his glove as far as he was concerned, and he reminded me of a football player. Okay, you know how they take their eye off the ball and they
Take the
drop
eye
it.
off the ball and it bounces off their pad.
So I
Yeah.
said, huh, so that's one error. There was still a chance. There was 2 outs. There were two
Oh, there were
outs.
2 outs when this started.
Yeah.
Okay.
So when all is said and done, they tie up a game 5-5. The fans' jaws are dropping in the stadium. Now, I know who wins the game. So I'm thinking,
But you're
I want to
still on
see,
edge.
I still want to know how did they not come back, or what really did tip this? They
Hmm.
had to win by 7-6. So I'm watching it, and I was appalled by the pitching. I said, holy smokes. I mean, they're walking people, they're loading the base every inning, every inning after that
The big,
could have went the other way easily. Only
the
needed
big
one
choke,
hit.
the big choke was in,
Yeah.
huh? Aye.
And I'm watching, I'm thinking, if you're a pitcher, when I was pitching baseball, I could throw the ball consistently through a tire sitting on a chair. I
Hmm.
could throw it in the hole. I could put it down and make a strike out of it.
And
They're
I can
throwing them all
verify
over.
that. I watched you
Yes.
do that day after day. Yeah.
So, I'm appalled by all this. I'm sitting there and I'm watching this. And on the eighth inning, it still hadn't, they still haven't scored or something. I actually Googled it again to make sure that I knew how they won the game. I thought maybe the score was 8-6, 8-5 or something.
Uh,
So I watched that game and I said, that the way that ended was just terrible. It should have been, we should be playing, it should be a 3-2. And I thought the Yankees
mhm.
were on a bit of a roll. It probably went 3-3 and it had been,
Yeah.
game 7 or something. But I can't believe I sat through that whole thing and I'm going, pitch the ball, throw a strike, let them hit it, do something.
And the pitcher forgetting to cover first base on a ground ball. I mean, well, I remember when ground balls came to me, you were
Yeah,
always running
I
over
had
to
to be there
first.
because you were
Of course,
deep.
the ball
You're
went through my
yeah,
legs normally, so it didn't matter. It didn't matter. But
but you're right. So anyhow, I thought I'd mention that to our listeners that even knowing the game, even knowing who won the game, I watched the rerun of that,
hmm,
and I was just amazed that New
how,
York
how
didn't come back and beat them.
how could it happen this way?
Yeah,
Yeah.
how can it beat them? So anyhow, so that's my comments on sports uh, and that's over with now. And what's next? Just football.
Yeah, that's what we have. That's what's happening. I guess it's hockey. Hockey never stops. They're playing.
You don't follow college. You don't follow college
Ho-
football, do you?
I follow some college football. I like to watch, I follow Pitt, Penn State, pray for Ohio State to lose, that sort of thing.
I like to watch Iowa. I like to watch even Alabama to see if they can, because they're now sort of they're a team that has a chance of winning or losing, so it's
Yeah,
always a
they
little
got
bit
some
more exciting.
humility, didn't they? Yeah.
Yeah, and Washington and some of the Michigan teams. So I think Saturday is the big college day, so I usually drag up a few of those. But anyhow,
Anyhow,
the pros they come and they go. I can get all I want from the clips.
that's right.
You know what I mean? Just
That's
go to
right.
Sports
Yeah.
Central and see the highlights of all the
You can go,
games.
there's an option now like important plays, and you could see everything that happens in
Yeah.
10 minutes. Yeah. Anyway, I got a question for you.
Yeah. Question. Oh, you got something you got to tell me too. You gave me a stump the buck thing, and you got to let me
Well,
know
we
the
go to
answer to
that.
that.
Yeah, we go to that. Yeah, let's do that. Okay, we could jump over to that. Now,
Okay, good people. He's going to reiterate what the question was
I'm
and
going to
why
ask
I
the
didn't.
question again.
Yeah.
You still, did I send you the right answer?
I did not because I refused to do that. I wanted to find out on
Okay.
when we spoke.
All right. I'm going to, let's see. Okay, here's the question. Here's the quiz. There were 30 cows in a field and 28 chickens. How many didn't? And your
And
answer was 2.
I did a math. I was just thinking it was some kind of a math thing or something.
Mm-hmm.
Without, I did not Google it, and I didn't put anything else. But it sounds like it was one of them twisted kind of an answers. So, and then you told me that your youngest grandson
Oh
answered the
yeah.
question pretty
He
much
he got it.
immediately, and
He
he's
got it.
only 8.
He got it. Yeah, almost immediately. He got it after the first asking. He didn't even need to go through the second asking. He said, oh, it's blah. let me.
Well,
I'm
there's a
going to read a
difference in the
question to
line of
you one
thinking.
more time, okay?
Yeah.
There were 30 cows in the field, and 20 ate
Chickens.
chickens. How many didn't?
Oh,
Oh,
28 chickens,
how many
not
didn't?
EIGHT.
ATE. That makes a difference. That makes a difference. That's one of the peculiarities of our language,
That is
isn't
one
it?
of the
Yeah.
that's why English as a second language is so difficult to understand
Well,
half the time.
can you give me the answer now that now that I
So
gave you all the
30
clues?
cows in fields and 28 ate chickens.
28 chickens.
28 chickens.
Yeah.
So that means 10.
10, you got it. Congratulations. It took a while. Took a while. Uh, uh,
so so you realize I misunderstood the 8 EIGHT for 8 ATE.
everybody does. Yeah.
Every day.
Everybody
There you
does.
go.
So
That's
we had
funny.
actually we had seven correct answers. Seven people sent in the correct answer. Two of those people admitted to cheating to get the answer. How did I do that? And the other ones didn't say anything one way or the other. So, but we all sent them your stovetop art. I think I sent all of them copy of your
It's funny you should mention that
totally
stove.
fungible token.
Yes, the stovetop art was uniquely designed by the old Buck Dell. It never did become very commercially viable or famous,
We didn't make
but
a
it was
million.
unique. It was unique.
It was
I've never
unique.
seen anybody else
Yeah,
do that. So
yeah. Now we had a bunch of people got the wrong answer too, actually. But there were two that got the wrong answer that I think they deserve some partial credit here. All right. So I'm going to read. I can find it here. So we had Frank from Allentown, Pennsylvania. And first of all, he gives us a compliment. He says 205 was great. And then his answers, two didn't cross the road. So he must not have been paying attention to your wrong answer. Okay. and and as far as the second question, where you have 36 donuts and you ate 30, what do you have now? He says you also have a
diabetes.
stomach ache. He says
Yeah.
you also have a stomach ache. He said thanks for the adult conversation. Glad you guys are safe down there. So I thought that was
Yeah.
cute. So
Well,
we got to
thank
recognize
you,
Frank.
Frank. Yeah, thank for listening and thanks for sending something in. But I think that is that's one of the peculiarities of time. There's a time when I might have been thinking like that. You know, I might have been looking for a pun or
Mm-hmm.
something. And then as time goes by, I mean, we start taking things literally or something without even, thinking about 8 and 8.
But maybe when
So
you're 8 years old, you haven't had all those bad habits drummed into your brain, right?
it
You're not
sounded
jumping
like
to
8. Yeah,
conclusions so much.
yeah, it
Yeah,
sounded like 8.
that
So
might be it. You're still pure. Yeah. Well,
yeah.
we got another near miss. This is ML from Moonbeam, Canada. And ML says 28 didn't cross the road. Same, well, it's wrong answer again, but follows it up with saying perhaps they were in a foul mood, FOWL, or
that's
they just
that's some good stuff. That's
or
some good
just
stuff.
couldn't pluck up enough energy to do it. So that's worth partial credit there for sure. I thought that was pretty cute.
Hey, I got to tell you that I've been doing some sort of remodeling work, and I had some people come in, and they saw my new uh, mic stand that I'm talking on.
Showing off, yeah.
Yeah, they saw my new mic stand, and they said, "Oh, what are you doing?" I said, we do a podcast," and I was telling them a little bit about it.
Uh-huh.
And for all our listeners, I picked up this mic stand at the D Mart. You know,
The D-Mart,
the D Mart. That's the DUMP.
the dumpster, the
Yeah.
dumpster mart.
Somebody set a whole bunch of equipment down, including the mic stand, and I think they had trouble with their amp. So I said, "Oh, this is perfect because now I can sit back further, more relaxed,
Mhm.
and when I'm talking." So that's why I'm looking the way as
You're
cool
looking
as I look
extra
today.
cool today, yeah.
Yeah, I'm looking extra cool today.
Well, listen,
So,
I want to give you another example of how our senses play tricks on us, and particularly this is our sense of hearing. This is along the same lines as the chicken chicken
hmm
story.
hmm
This is from a fellow named Paul Watson in the UK, and he's relating a story here. It says, a man sits by me on the train. The man says, loads of psychopaths around here, aren't there? And I say, really? He says, loads, mate. And I say, how'd you know? And he says, there are signs, aren't there? And I go, like me, I say, I guess. And the man says, I love them. This is followed by 47 minutes of awkward silence. The man leaves the train. He has a bicycle. I realized he was saying psychopaths. That's
love
great.
loves the psychopaths.
Yeah. Yeah. Honest.
That 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 NPR program that does Hidden Brain often touches on stuff like this, how the meanings. Uh, uh, and in fact, we talked about this on podcast long time ago. You know, when we say why is called a truck a pickup truck, you know, why we name things.
Yeah.
A,
Yeah.
a shirt that absorbs sweat is a sweatshirt.
Sweatshirt.
Yeah, and so we accept all these things, but there's a bunch of very descriptive uh, names in our vocabulary, and some of it sounds like I said, psychopaths. It is psychopaths.
Paths. There you
Yeah,
go.
so
Hmm.
that's cute.
That's cute. Yeah.
Good
Hey,
stuff.
speaking of cute, we got some feedback on the ragged clown.
Yeah,
Remember the ragged
I
clown?
do.
Okay.
He's a blogger.
He's a blogger. Okay. And we read a little parts of an essay that he wrote and attached a link to the entire essay as well as another link to his website, to his blog. So these are comments we got from the on the ragged clown and his talking about ritual and meaning of life and that sort of thing. And the first one says, I'm with him. I know I need rituals and celebrations to cope with things. I think I just like to be with others and have a good time. So there you go.
And I commented that one of our rituals is having coffee, which we did.
Which we did.
Which we
We
did the other day at a famous, well-known named coffee shop, and it turned out that we couldn't hear each other talk inside the place.
so we had to go outside in the heat.
So we outside and sat outside near the bus stop, and
Yeah.
so we could talk to it. And we laughed. We laughed, and we
And
carried
and
on
I
for.
wondered why it was raining. It started raining.
And I pointed to him. I said, "See that's a fire training. There's a fire
Right
training,
across the street.
yeah, fire training service across the
And
street where they
everything got
train would-be firemen, and they're hosing down the neighborhood, and the stuff is blown over on us. So,
massive
yeah.
hoses blowing up into the air and onto. Anyway, that's
Uh,
that's
just,
what that's what passes for interesting stuff for old guys, isn't it?
yeah, the old Bucks. I mean, we are about friendship. We encourage that. If you got a good old friend, stay in touch with them. Visit. We can't emphasize enough how much that 30 minutes or 40 minutes means. We run the gamut of from books to to wars, and we cover it all in 30 minutes. Laugh and feel better when we go. So if you got an old buddy out there, someone you can coffee with, I recommend you do that.
Absolutely. Well, hey, let me get a couple more, give you a couple more feedbacks here, pieces of feedback from on the Ragged Clown. Another person said, interesting topic, rituals could be very wide, personal rituals, social, cultural. Basically, rituals should work as stability and calm inhibitors, in my opinion. Another person said, this is good food for thought. I need to decide if I'm a well frog or a sea turtle. You remember that? And here's a fascinating one. It says the Ragged Clown was a few years behind me at Chislehurst and Sidcup Grammar. So this is a listener who went to the same school as he did. So that's interesting.
And the Ragged Clown is based in England, is he not?
He is, yeah. He's British. He's English. Yeah.
He's British.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I had a little bit of bio that I picked up on him. He's led a fascinating life. Uh,
Yes, he has.
absolutely
He's,
fascinating.
he's done 1,000 things.
Yeah.
Yeah, done all kind of different careers.
Yep.
Interesting character. He has, I say, if you read his blog, it's he's got some really fascinating stories. It's a real cute story about how he met his wife. So, for you
Anyhow,
romantics out there,
is
yeah.
there? You have a link to his blog, right?
I
Don't you?
put the link to his blog on the in the
There you
last
go.
episode. We could stick it on there again.
Otherwise,
Where are
I
we
was
here?
gonna.
Yeah.
Did it, you remember one time I was talking about how I felt that I was organized? I said, Dave, I think I've got it licked. I'm organized. I figured it out. I got a much smaller refrigerator,
Yep.
saying I wouldn't have so much Tupperware.
Life is simple.
Yeah,
Simplifying
very
life. Yeah.
simplified life. Well, it turns out I've I've run into kitchen creep.
Oh, oh no.
I I even had extra plugs. I had extra plugs in on the kitchen, uh, on the countertops. I had plenty of room. I said, "There's no way I'm ever going to run out of plugs." Well, uh, devices that require plugs are now creeping slowly from the wall, towards the stove
You
and
got,
towards the sink.
you got the kitchen octopus going?
Yeah, it's like I said, my. I thought I had all this wonderful counter space, and now I have this on there and that on there. And I said, do we really need an air fryer? And it turns out I enjoy it myself. So yeah, that's an air fryer
Yeah.
and this and that. So now I'm down to about probably four square feet of usable counter space. Everything else is
You,
all kind of gadgetry.
you can commiserate with my wife because I get accused stuff. So we've got this countertop here, and I've got let's see. Well, of course, I got all this stuff right here, the podcast stuff. At the other end, I've got a bunch of notes, some stories that I'm reading, some books that I've got stacked up, and I've got a similar pile in the den and a similar pile by my chair in the living room. And she said, "You just you're just taking over everything, aren't you? This is never going to change." I said, I probably won't. It probably won't. So what are you
Well,
going to
I did have speaking of wives, uh, some of the old bucks out there might be able to relate to this. I had a little chat with my wife. She seems, I mean, women tend to like shoes, right? And
We've been
and
down this road. Yeah.
yeah, they tend to like shoes, and I I got to say, okay, you got to have 3 or 4 pairs. Obviously, they need to be this, that, and the other thing. But I had to beg her. I came to an agreement with her. I said, please don't buy shoes online because they inevitably do not fit. The shoes simply don't fit. And then you have to make that extra trip back to the store
Yeah.
to return them. So I said, please promise me, I'll take you to any shoe store. You can spend as many hours as you want. Just come home with a pair
The pair that you don't take back.
that fits and works, and you can actually wear them.
Yeah. Yeah.
So all you bucks out there that might have that situation, that's how you resolve that. You just compromise and make sure you have something to read or a puzzle while she's in the shoe store, and hand her your credit card and prepare to live with the consequences. So
Yeah. Yep. Yep.
all lighthearted, fun stuff for old
All
bucks,
800.
old married bucks. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, let's move from lighthearted to less lighthearted here as we wrap up this episode. What do you think?
Okay.
Okay.
Yep.
So I'll tell you what we're going to do today. Well, I'm not telling you. I'm telling the listeners, I guess, because you know what we're going to do today.
No,
You have an idea.
It's just you and me talking.
You have
right?
That's probably two other.
We keep
two
a
other
lot
people.
of things just between us
Yeah.
on this podcast.
So we're going to end today with a short story by George Saunders. This story was published in March 2020. The title is Love Letter. It is a letter written by a man to his grandson, Robbie, and it takes place in the not too distant future. In fact, at the beginning of he dates the letter, and he dates it February 22nd, 2020 blank. Okay, so fill in the last digit. Anyway, now normally we discuss these stories after we read them, but we're not going to do that this time because the story speaks for itself, in my opinion. You've read it as well.
Mm-hmm.
So as always, we want to hear our listener feedback, pro or con. What did you think of the story, or what did you think anything else we said today, for that matter? If you like it, if you like us, certainly forward the episode to your friends. We could always use some more listeners, but we'd really like you to just we'd like to finish up by have you listen to this story and think about it. It's interesting cautionary tale, I think. So with that, peace, love, and understanding, and we'll talk to you next time.
Yeah. Thanks, folks, for listening and sharing your thoughts with the old bucks. Certainly have a fun time. So enjoy the story, and then you can write your comments to us. And this is old Buck Dell saying, I'll talk to you next time.
Bye. Love Letter by George Saunders. February 22nd, 2020. Dear Robbie, got your email, kid. Sorry for handwriting in reply. Not sure emailing is the best move considering the topic, but of course, you being nearly 6 foot now, your mother says, that's up to you, dear. Although, strange times. Beautiful day here. A flock of geese just now came in low over the deck, and your grandmother and I, holding the bright blue mugs you kindly sent at Christmas, did simultaneous hip swivels as they zinged off towards Rosley. And I expect an easy meal on the golf course there. Forgive me for my use of initials in what follows. Would not wish to cause further difficulties for G, M, or J. Good folks all, we very much enjoyed meeting them when you stopped by last Easter. Should this get sidetracked and read by someone other than you? I think you are right regarding G. That ship has sailed. Best to let that go. M, per your explanation, does not lack proper paperwork, but did know all the while that G did lack it, yes? And did nothing about that? I'm not suggesting, of course, that she should have, but putting ourselves into their heads, as I think these days it is prudent to try to do, we might ask, why did M, again according to them, to their way of thinking, do what she should have done by letting someone in authority know about G? Since being here is, quote, a privilege and not a right, are we or are we not, as I have grown sick of hearing, quote, a nation of laws? Even as they change the laws constantly to suit their own beliefs. Believe me, I am as disgusted as you are with all this. But the world, in my ancient experience, sometimes moves off in a certain direction. And having moved, being so large and inscrutable, cannot be recalled to its previous, better state. And so, in this current situation, it behooves us, I would say, to think as they think, as well as we can manage, to avoid as much unpleasantness and future harm as possible. But of course, you are writing really to ask about Jay. Yes, I am still in touch with the lawyer you mentioned. Don't feel he would be much help at this point. In his prime, he was, yes, a prince of a guy striding into a courthouse. But he is not now the man he was. He opposed, perhaps too energetically, the DOJ review / ouster of sitting judges and endured much abuse in the press, and his property was defaced, and he was briefly detained for these days. From what I have heard, is mostly just puttering around his yard, keeping his views to himself. Where is Jay now? Do you know? State facility or Fed? That may matter. I expect they, the loyalists, would, with the power of the courts now behind them, say that although Jay is a citizen, she forfeited certain rights and privileges by declining to offer the requested info on G and M. You may recall R and K, friends of ours, who gave you for your 5th or 6th birthday that bronze Lincoln Bank. They are loyalists, still in touch, and that is the sort of logic they follow. A guy over in Bremerton befriended a guy at the gym, and they would go on runs together and so forth. And the first guy, after declining to comment on what he knew of his friend's voting past, suddenly found he could no longer register his work vehicle. He was a florist, so this proved problematic. R&K's take on this: a person is, quote, no patriot if he refuses to answer a, quote, simple question from his, quote, own homeland government. That is where we find ourselves. You asked me if you were supposed to stand by and watch your friend's life be ruined. 2 answers. One is a citizen, the other is a grandfather. You have turned to me in what must be a difficult time, and I am trying to be frank. As a citizen, I can, of course, understand why a young, intelligent, good-looking person, perpetual delight to know, I might add, would feel that it is his duty to, quote, do something on behalf of his friend Jay. But what exactly? That is the question. When you reach a certain age, you see that time is all we have, by which I mean moments like those overhead geese this morning, and watching your mother be born, and sitting at the dining room table here, waiting for the phone to ring and announce that a certain baby, you, had been born. Or that day when all of us hiked out to Point Lobos. Those baby deer, the extremely loud seal, your sister's scarf drifting down to the black, briny boulder, the replacement you so generously bought her in Monterey. How pleased you made her with your kindness. Those things were real. That is all one gets. This other stuff is real only to the extent that it interferes with those moments. Now you may say, I can hear you saying it and see the look on your face as you do, that this incident with Jay is an interference. I respect that. But as your grandfather, I beg you not to underestimate the power/danger of this moment. Perhaps I haven't told you this yet. In the early days, I wrote 2 letters to the editor of the local rag, one overwrought, the other comic. Neither had any effect. Those who agreed with me agreed with me. Those who did not remained unpersuaded. After a 3rd attempt was rejected, I found myself pulled over up near the house for no reason I could discern. The cop, nice guy, just a kid really from my perspective, asked what I did all day. Did I have any hobbies? I said no. He said, some of us heard you like to type. I sat in my car looking over at his large pale arm. His face was the face of a kid. His arm, though, was the arm of a man. How would you know about that? I said. Have a good night, sir, he said. Stay off the computer. Good Lord, his stupidity and bulk there in the darkness, the metallic clanking from his belt area, the palpable certainty he seemed to feel regarding his cause, a cause I cannot begin, even at this late date, to get my head around, or view from within, so to speak. I do not want you anywhere near or under the sway of that sort of person ever. I feel here a need to address the last part of your email, which, I want to assure you, did not upset me or hurt my feelings. No. When you reach my age, and if you are lucky enough to have a grandson like you, stellar, you will know that nothing that the grandson could say could ever hurt your feelings. And in fact, I am so touched that you thought to write me in your time of need and be so direct and even, I admit it, somewhat rough with me. Seen in retrospect, yes, I have regrets. There was a certain critical period. I see that now. During that period, your grandmother and I were doing every night a jigsaw puzzle each at the dining room table I know you know very well. We were planning to have the kitchen redone. We're in the midst of having the walls out in the yard rebuilt at great expense. I was experiencing the first intimations of the dental issues I know you have heard so much, too much about. Every night as we sat across from each other doing those puzzles, from the TV in the next room blared this litany of things that had never before happened, that we could never have imagined happening, that were now happening. And the only response from the TV pundits was a wry, satirical smugness that assumed, as we assumed, that those things could and would soon be undone, and that all would return to normal, that some adult or adults would arrive, as they had always arrived in the past, to set things right. It did not seem, and please destroy this letter after you've read it, that someone so clownish could disrupt something so noble and time-tested and seemingly strong that had been with us literally every day of our lives. We had taken, in other words, a profound gift for granted. Did not know if the gift was a fluke, a chimera, a wonderful accident of consensus and mutual understanding. Because this destruction was emanating from such an inept source who seemed, at that time, merely comical, thuggish, who seemed to know so little about what he was disrupting, and because life was going on, and because every day he/they burst through some new gate of propriety, we soon found that no genuine outrage was available to us anymore. If you'll allow me a crude metaphor, as I'm sure you, the king of Las Bromas de Fartas, will, a guy comes into a dinner party, takes a dump in the rug on the living room. The guests get all excited, yell in protests. He takes a second dump. The guests feel, well, yelling really didn't help, while some of them applaud his audacity. He takes a third dump on the table, and still no one throws him out. At that point, the sky has become the limit in terms of future dumps. So although your grandmother and I, during this critical period, often said, you know, someone should arrange a march, are those effing Republican senators, we soon grew weary of hearing ourselves saying those things, and to avoid being old people emptily repeating ourselves, stopped saying those things and did our puzzles and so forth, waiting for the election. I'm speaking here of the second, not the third, of the sun, which being a total sham didn't hurt or surprise as much. Post-election, doing new puzzles. Mine a difficult sort of Catskill summer scene. Noting those early pardons, which by the time they were granted, we'd been well prepared to expect and tolerate. And then that deluge of pardons, each making way for the text, next, and the celebratory verbal nonsense accompanying the pardons, to which, again, we were by this time somewhat inured. And the targeting of judges, and the incidents in Reno and Lowell, and the investigations into pundits, and the casting aside of term limits, who still did not really believe in the thing that was happening. Birds still burst out of the trees and so forth. I feel I am disappointing you. I just want to say that history, when it arrives, may not look as you expect, based on the reading of history books. Things in there are always so clear. One knows exactly what one would have done. Your grandmother and I, and many others, would have had to be more extreme people than we were during that critical period to have done whatever it was we should have been doing. And our lives had not prepared us for extremity, to mobilize or to be as focused and energized as I can see in respect we would have needed to be. We were not prepared to drop everything in defense of a system that was to us like oxygen, used constantly, never noted. We were spoiled, I think I am typing to say, as were those on the other side, willing to tear it all down because they had been so thoroughly nourished by the vacuous plenty in which we all lived, a bountiful condition that allowed people to thrive and opine and swagger around like kings and queens while remaining ignorant of their own history. What would you have had me do? What would you have done? I know what you will say. You would have fought. But how? How would you have fought? Would you have called your senator? In those days, you could still at least record your feeble message on a senator's answering machine without reprisal. But you might as well have been singing or whistling or passing wind into it for all the good it did. Well, we did that. We called, we wrote letters. Would you have given any money to certain people running for office? We did that as well. Would you have marched? For some reason, there were suddenly no marches. Organized a march? Then and now, I did not and do not know how to arrange a march. I was still working full time. This dental thing had just begun. That rather occupies the mind. You know where we live. Would you have had me go down to Waterville and harangue the officials there? They were all in agreement with us at that time. Would you have armed yourself? I would not and will not, and I do not believe you would either. I hope not. By that, all is lost. Let me, at the end, return to the beginning. I advise and implore you, stay out of this business with Jay. Your involvement will not help, especially if you don't know where they have taken her, Fed or state, and may in fact hurt. I hope I do not offend if I here use the phrase, quote, empty gesture. Not only would Jay's situation be made worse, so might that of your mother, father, sister, grandmother, grandfather, etc., etc. Part of the complication is that you are not alone in this. I want you well. I want you somebody to be an old fart yourself, writing a too long letter to a beloved grandson. In this world, we speak much of courage and not, I feel, enough about discretion and caution. I know how that will sound to you. Let it be. I have lived this long and have the right. It occurs to me only now that you and Jay may be more than just friends. If the case, would, I know, and must, complicate the matter. I had last night a vivid dream of those days, of that critical pre-election period. I was sitting across from your grandmother, she at work on her puzzle, Puppies and Kittens, and I on mine, Gnomes in the Trees. And suddenly we saw in a flash things as they were. That is, we realized that this was the critical moment. We looked at each other across the table with such freshness, if I may say it that way, such love for each other and for our country, the country in which we had lived our whole lives, the many roads, hills, lakes, malls, byways, villages we had known and moved about and around in so freely. How precious and dear it all seemed. Your grandmother stood with that decisiveness. I know you know. Let us think of what we must do, she said. Then I woke. There in bed, I felt for a brief instant that it was that time again, and not this time. Lying here, I found myself wondering, for the first time in a long while, not what should I have done, but what might I yet do? I came back to myself gradually. It was sad, a sad moment, to be once again in a time and place where action was not possible. I wish with all my heart that we could have passed it on to you intact. I do. That is now, not to be. That regret I will take to my grave. Wisdom now amounts to making such intelligent accommodations as we can. I am not saying stick your head in the sand, Jay made a choice. I respect her for it. And yet, no one is calling on you to do anything. You are, in my view, doing much good simply by rising in the morning, being as present and kind as possible, keeping sanity alive in the world, so that someday, when or if this thing passes, the country may find its way back to normalcy with your help and the help of those like you. In this, you are, and I am, I hope, like cave people sheltering a small remaining trace of fire through a dark period. But please know that I understand how hard it must be to stay silent and inactive if, in fact, Jay was more than just a friend. She is a lovely person, and I recall her crossing our yard with her particular grace and brio, swinging your car keys in that long silver chain, her dog, Whiskey, running there beside her. I feel I've made my preference clear above. I say what follows not to encourage, but we have money, not much, but some, set aside. Should push come to shove, I am finding it hard to advise you. Please let us know what you are inclined to do, as we find that this, you, is all that we can now think of. With much love, more than you can know, G-Paw.